Public's out there throwing darts to the board support. I don't throw darts to the board. Get on short things.
Exciting now.
My CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer.
This is what you do for your spare time.
We've got an amazing show lined up for you today. So much has been happening in the world of cryptocurrency. We're looking at the Kaspa chart and we can see a clear pattern developing here. Every other FOMC meeting, in this case, it was every third, Kaspa starts ripping to the ceiling. Meanwhile, there's a Telegram group orchestrating, putting pressure on the market makers because now's when they have their checkbook out. This is when the quantitative easing cycle is all taking place, and we're going to start breaking down these details. This can be an absolute game changer. As we start covering the Fed's balance sheet to understand quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, to time the market top. This will completely change your bull market. So we're going to want to pay attention to that. Even for those of us who understand Satoshi's secret, we're going into the next level of it here. Actually starting to break it down and do the accounting like we do inside VIP with all these bond auctions and etc. Jumping over to the Bitcoin chart, it stopped directly, and this is zoomed in. We're going to zoom out in a second. Everybody in VIP already knows what this trend line is and how important it is. They have an exact repeating copy of this trend line during the prior cycle and using it. For one, we located this easy resistance, and two, more importantly, forward looking, this will help us correlate how high this breakout is going to go, but we'll get into those details in a moment. Zooming in on Kaspa, last night we finally crossed the fabled gravitational field. This was the exact level that held us back all throughout the KRC20 inscription launch, as we had been projecting inside VIP. And this gets us to a very interesting screenshot, which almost looks like it was doctored. Now, I remember during September, this is from November 7th. This is a content creator with a larger channel than mine. And this is all up to the community. We're putting out the content. We're making the most accurate calls. It's up for you guys to get this channel in front of more eyes. I remember when these guys were buying Kaspa over and over again right here on this arc into KRC20. And inside of our VIP, we were like, no. I had to answer hundreds of emails from VIP members where they were like, are you sure? Are you 100% sure? And we actually shorted Caspa. We'd actually been premeditating short selling Caspa, shorted it. But what was happening was this, and he was, let's call him the leader of the group. Let's give him some credit because they all did this. They were all scooping Caspa up, loading up on it, getting ready to go. And this young guy, crypto enthusiast, learning the game, very charismatic, actually inside our Discord. We built our Discord on winners, and this includes when there's winners, there has to be losers. We have an entire section for creator roast callouts, and one of the female members noticed that while this guy's calls aren't good, his makeup is top of the line. He has really high-grade lipstick on, so he's really adding a layer of theatrics to his financial content, and that definitely helps people make money. So he dumps all his Caspa on November 7th. I mean, I'm thinking that this is a meme somebody made, and he swaps it for Solana. By doing the exact opposite, there's so much more gains to be made. And this gentleman is so close to hitting the nail on the head for what's going on between Caspa and Solana. We're going to jump into that in a second, looking at Solana's stablecoin development, what's been happening with the meme coin, all the recent hype. So this poor chap sells his Caspa here at like 11 cents on the 7th, somewhere in this range, for Solana, and then it rockets to the upside. Because Caspa is completely poised to eat Solana's lunch, which is why we have the bowling pins all set up. Solana's going out of business with Caspa. They're going to completely destroy it. Why? Step number 3 of our 24-point checklists. See, these guys have now fled the Caspa community because they got to deal with their father right here. I've got kids that are this guy's age. My daughter can outtrade that guy. I know for a fact she would never sell her Caspa right there. But we're talking about step number 3 of the GitHub page, where we go through and look at the code that each crypto is written on. Caspa switching from Golang to Rust. Right now, Solana is written in Rust. This means that there's a team of developers already trained. They've built dApps. They've built utility coins. They built everything from Sunday, like this gentleman's describing, the oracles. This is all important, but it's going to be so easy for these guys to almost cut, copy, paste it, rebrand it, tweak it, and now put it on Caspa. And guess what they're going to do? Exactly that. And guess what's going to happen to Caspa? It's going to completely rock it. How many people hit the like button right now if you just made a ton of money? $25,000 or more? $10,000 or more in the past 10 days. Things have been rocketing to the upside. I made $90,000 in the past 5 days on my 4-pick portfolio. Massive upside. And this is one of the points of that. When the bull market starts, it's going to be $250,000 up and down over the weekend. You're going to be a multi-millionaire one day, a millionaire the next day, and $100,000 a couple of weeks later. It's going to be high stress. So if anybody was feeling emotionally triggered from this last downside, we got to get on top of this. And of course, it was never going below 10 cents because of the whole gamma support based on the Binance futures. But these 24-point checklists, they're way better than just finding Caspa early and charting Caspa. These young guys, they're fleeing Caspa because they can't create accurate content. How many of them just went the opposite way twice now? Twice. They were going long while we were going short, and then they were going short when we were going long. So completely backwards. And this is the thing. They've diverted into meme coins. And we already disproved that by gem hunting like Moonwell, which we plotted this out in June, knowing about quantitative easing, which is very important. We're going to get into because you can just flip all this information about quantitative easing around and start building figures for how to sell in the bull market. Like we track it down to the day, to the dollar, and VIP. We'll show you in a minute. So we're getting in on Moonwell. This is a leading swing trade. We're getting in on after the Bank of Japan. This is spectral. This is something that we targeted specifically when that market crashed. We have a full 24-point checklist on this. This became a leading swing trade. 01 Labs, as we're getting closer to this quantitative easing, to the rate cuts, they start lining up the bigger exchange listings. They got the MEXC listing, and then this post was about the Gate.io listing. This is another 24-point checklist gem that was a leading swing trade. Leading swing trades, we go right here. You're looking at all the projects in the world. We filter out because there's so many, the junk. So it's got to be at least a $10 million market cap. Micro caps are a whole nother story. And the volume's got to be more than 500,000. You could lower this to 250,000 and the search results are going to be the same. But for safety's sake, you never want more than 1% of the daily volume. So 5K, you're topped out with 500,000. We see the past 30 days, and you can see we've already got picks in this. This is like the 15th best one. This was our post about it inside VIP. We're talking about Parcel. We put it on everybody's eyes right around here. We get the pullback pre-election, and then we throw in an additional buy signal here, and then it rockets to the upside. This is a broadening wedge pattern right here. Adding on new, knowing real world assets will get ready to go. So these guys, these younger guys, their meme coins aren't even holding up to our swing trades or our 24-point checklist gems. And there's tons of members running around verifying multiple different projects. So there's people that have a correlated mindset. And of course, it's always bounced off artificial intelligence, which is one of our secret sauces. The reason we've been able to crush everything is because we're getting special help from our
CPU
friend.
is a neural net processor, a learning computer.
AI. Okay, so looking at the Caspa chart, before we get into the TA, breaking down the quantitative easing, and this is all happening right now as we speak and plays a massive part in all of this. As we can see in this chart, this is showing us a direct correlation, and this has been verified once the Marathon Digital came out and said, we've been mining Kaspa since September, all of our tinfoil hat theories because of the FOMC action here, and then later here verifying it, asserting that Kaspa is a gem, were verified. Because the reason it's rocketing up on FOMC data, this is a direct correlation that it's linked to the quantitative easing cycle. And this is something that we do when we're verifying any gem. Look at how we did it on Parcel. See, we knew this was going to be good because they cut rates on September 18th, and this saw a lot of upside. Right? Forward looking, see, that's a signal. It's a direct signal that the big dogs that are hooked to the quantitative easing are buying it. And that means during the bull market, it will have extra strength. These are the absolute top picks. So we're breaking down this document. This is really economics 101. We need to understand enough of this to be able to trade off of it. And what they're talking about here is, how will the Fed decide when they're going to end quantitative tightening? What are they even talking about with quantitative tightening? This is it. This fuels everything. When Satoshi developed Bitcoin, he placed the halving with this 4-year global liquidity cycle. This is a document about economics, not about crypto. And they're charting the swing of quantitative easing since they moved to the fiat monopoly money system. As you can see, peaking here, bottoming here. So we're recently at the bottom, we're going up to the peak. What this is showing is how much money the FOMC is holding versus how much money is on the street. And there are multiple different charts that can show this in its clarity. So right here around February 2020, notice how this chart spikes massively to the upside. This means that the FOMC is buying the bonds. They're buying all these different mortgage-backed securities, things along this nature. Primarily, we'll just call it the one-year treasury bonds because that's one of their biggest holdings. That and the 10-year, and it's also just to make this simplified. Remember, we don't have to have a degree in economics. We just want to understand enough so when we're watching that old guy on TV, Powell, and we're looking at these numbers, we can trade off of it. So right here, we're seeing the same thing with interest rates as the two are correlated, but not realistically the same thing. But for argument's sake, we say they are. Notice that date, February 20th. When you zoom out, that's the rocket ship. 1 year later, of course, those are the one-year treasury bonds. That's when all this cash is now hitting the market, stimulating everything. And when you reverse this, when you flip it around, it's even more potent. As the Fed starts raising rates, then you start getting the downside. Right here, November, December. Boom. So just recently, looking at what the FOMC has been doing, and just to show an even finer detail, we brought up this subchart. And notice how there's this wrinkle in it right here. This is a big deal. Look at the date here, February 27th. What does the government do? And this is just to prove all the points we just went over one more time. They buy a bunch of these assets. One-year treasury bonds off BlackRock, Jane Street, the market makers, the guys that everyone's trying to put pressure on to buy more Caspa right now by withdrawing from the exchanges. As they do that, they're giving them cash to put on the street, and they don't leave it in fiat because they don't want inflation. Look at what happened right on those dates. February 27th to there. Boom. They created this is the total 3 chart, all the altcoins. They created this ripple to the upside. And so right now what they're doing, they haven't even started the quantitative easing cycle yet. And this document covers when they're going to. Right now, they're just slowing it down. Now, we can get into even more details about how it works off, but we don't really need to understand bank reserves and repo notes in order to trade off of it. We'll handle that stuff in VIP and keep everything fairly simple. Scrolling down farther in this document, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley predict the Fed will stop quantitative tightening in the first quarter of 2025. That means that this chart also demonstrated here will start going flat, and that's bullish. That's bull on. That's just as good as them quantitative easing. Now, with shifts in the government, new tariffs, better economy, they could start quantitative easing again, which is better for the bull market. This puts more cash on the street and gets everything going. And by tracking this, we will be better traders. And by understanding it as the FOMC is releasing their new data, this was their update. Like every other FOMC meeting is a big deal. This one wasn't that big of a deal, but the one before this was because they updated their projections, lowering their rate cuts into 2025, 2026, thus putting more money on the street. So we got to track this stuff in detail. And we go as far as like pulling up the receipts to the day, to the dollar inside VIP, and just understanding that what these numbers mean for the bull market is how we were able to put together a watch list with Moonwell on it. Because it's DeFi. It's also competing with the FOMC rates. Looking at the total 3, geez, that's a bullish looking chart, rounded like that. So all that this graph is showing and what's been so bullish for Caspa, to summarize the quantitative easing connection to Caspa, connecting this to the chart, what's happening is Jane Street, BlackRock, the market makers are buying less of securities off of the federal government. For one, they're not going to be getting as much. And two, that puts more money on the street. And when they have money on the street, they buy assets. And the FOMC meeting is when they open up the checkbooks. We went over the potential scenario of this rocket ship happening after this FOMC meeting in a couple of live streams. Although in the most bearish scenario, we could have hovered in 10 for a few months. But no, of course, we rip back up to the upside. Yes, it's great content, and we've got great trades. The leading group with all of our recent swing trades. And remember to slow down. That's one of the key things that I noticed the active trader members in the groups are. Slow down, step back, and start thinking of things every FOMC meeting, every other FOMC meeting. Start adjusting for every 45 days, every 90 days. That's going to get you more in tune with the market. Set your calendar to that, right? We're not werewolves. We don't need the 28-day lunar cycle. We need the FOMC cycle here to correlate with it. One of the guys, knowing the gamma support based off the Binance futures, we all realized, wait a minute, Binance opened futures back here. That's almost ridiculous. They did the exact same thing for Bitcoin. They're creating protection. People that can pull strings like BlackRock, who owns Marathon Digital, they're making sure that their hardware investment is protected. So all of a sudden they start doing futures right here. That's gamma support. Bitcoin has the same thing from the ETFs. It's not going below that. Even if other firms were trying to attack them, it's not happening. Some guys got a 77x leverage trade on Kaspa at 10 cents and change using the stochastic oscillators and stuff. So let's talk about what happened yesterday, as it's going to play into some of our technical analysis read right now. This happened. So we were up at 8:30 in the morning making a thumbnail for the live stream. And originally, back when we had done that, Caspa was still around 12 cents. It was re-entering this y-axis support. But we noticed that the fuel tank, Chanking's oscillator, had created a massive spike. And this is indicative of more upside about to happen. So we realized the FOMC meeting just happened. Caspa's doing bullish signals. So we switched the thumbnail to Caspa switching direction. Started the live stream at like 13 cents. And then by the time we were done, we were getting closer to challenging this very crucial level, which, because it was such strong resistance, just flipped into support, as we can see here. Looking on the 1 day, which is extremely important, we don't even need to look at the price really, because we know each time that these massive red candles are going, this is when momentum is in Caspa's favor. These are when other breakouts are happening. So we can see the size of this on the 1 day. This is just massively ramping up. Now, here's the other thing that we're looking at. This is the stochastics. These are both oscillators, which means they swing like a pendulum, very similar to RSI and MACD, yet completely different. And when you throw the price in, whenever this is at a high, Caspa's at a swing high. When it's at a low, it's at a swing low. Looking at just stochastics, as you can see, top, top, low, low. You see the pattern here? High, 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 high. And then what you do is you correlate this in with the fuel tank to figure out if you're going to get a higher low or a lower high. We've got a whole video on it, and we use it in a lot of our trading reads, including Moonwell. We were eyeballing Moonwell back here, but our biggest and strongest buy signal came here. Going to the one-day chart on Moonwell, check this out. It's a stochastic retrace back then. See here? So you're getting your high, and this is like what's known as a stochastic bull flag, and then a pullback here. So this was textbook buy signal. Because the fuel tank is so full, this breakout is going to continue to go. Now, whether it takes a momentary pause, it's going to look a lot like this. Of all these breakouts that I've watched under a microscope, it's the most similar to this one in January. And we might get some lateral pause right here. Looking at the stochastics, which shows momentum, we just got a 15-minute pullback, which caused us to come all the way to support. But as we start scrolling through higher, we got the half-hour pullback. What about 1 hour? 1 hour, we're just dipping down. And then as you get into the 2 and 4, it's just still creating a bull flag. So in some sort of a pause, looking at the 4-hour chart, let's see what happened back on this. Yeah, so the 4-hour, as you can see right here, during this monster rip, the 4-hour took a retrace. Did the 1 day? No, the 1 day stayed up, and that's a bull flag pattern. So we'll see something similar like this. The 4-hour will eventually, whether it breaks through here and then does it on top of the blue zone, start retracing. As you can see, these Fibonacci levels, this is the X and Y repeating trendline system. We already covered this in the prior upload, but because every single crypto has a strict halving and emission schedule, they create repeating trend lines. Let's go over to Bitcoin on that note, and we'll talk about exactly how we got this bounce off of this level. And right now we're challenging it, which is super good. Let's zoom out partially so we can get a detailed look at what's going on here. So this line back here started really when we were at the rock bottom low. Just for kicks and giggles, you can connect these bottoms like June 17th with all this quantitative easing data. Notice how we make a new local high here. June 17th, over the last cycle's highest rate cut percentage. And this is when the FOMC and the government has bought all the stuff. So all correlated, all linked. Whether Sam Bankman-Fried was going to take place or not, it was happening because of the government. They just added some regulation on. But noticing this trend line, we created this broadening wedge pattern right there. These two exact trend lines took place in the prior cycle. We did have the lockdowns, everything like that, so it was extremely bearish. But later, this purple trend line becomes a price control. And we know broadening wedge, a very bullish pattern, and it acts as resistance for Bitcoin as it finishes its breakout pattern. Now, seeing how this exact same trend line cloned, repeating itself, we can start to follow it upwards towards where we're projecting the bull market will end and get a range for Bitcoin. So this line exactly will be at $120,000 at the end of the year 2025 because the Fed delayed rate cuts. This bull market is going to be late. Absolutely, hands down. That's also how they were able to engineer this soft landing. Typically, every single rate cut in the history of mankind has been bearish because they're stimulating the economy. But because they delayed this one, it's actually been quite bullish. Part of the reason is markets reacted, particularly crypto. Right here is when they were supposed to be cutting rates on the total three, all the altcoins. And everybody got kind of, whoa, are they going to cut rates? Is there even going to be a bull market? And then they released their updated plan. Yeah, we're going to cut rates and we're going to hold them down for an extended period of time. And now the market is reacting and we're getting this cup and handle type of pattern, which we're seeing all across multiple different charts from spectral to artificial intelligence picks across the board. It's really very popular. So Moonwell lending and borrowing platform. I've dug into this sector and niche in depth. Your average lending and borrowing platform, the absolute best one was called Aave. And they did 7 billion. The majority of them on average at their peak last cycle, 2 billion. Now we have to take into account monetary printing. This is called the M2. It's another one of these factors. And when you really start doing all the accounting for this, there's actually 40% to 60% more money right now than there was during the last cycle. So we take 2 billion, increase it by 40%, we're just under 3. And you've got to also increase the popularity of crypto, which is definitely on the rise. So 2 to 3 billion low end. With Moonwell, based on historic data. And inside VIP, of course, we have a whole section of Moonwell. This is the Moonwell section, and we actually use the title that Sepral likes to use, like, oh, this is going to be the next Caspa. We were like the next Caspa chart, right around 45, because of course it's a cup and handle. But we were obviously plotting the retrace. Because 10 cents, these round numbers, this is going to be huge. And something else to consider while we're talking about the future with quantitative easing, round numbers are really funky. Traders make tons of mistakes, always based around round numbers. It was a couple weeks ago, I have a 4-bag pick. 3 of my picks were stuck at the number 10. Kaspa, Moonwell, and Spectral. It's just traders do that. So we assume that there'd be resistance and now a pullback. And we have some classical patterns based on fundamentals inside VIP for when the next breakout's going to take place, when to buy, etc., like that. Oh yeah, selling is where everybody's going to make the biggest mistakes. And selling, here's one of the issues looking back on the last bull run. We think that these guys who are goofing off and getting rid of their Caspa for Solana 5 days before the breakout this week, we think this is bad. We can actually go back. Of course, most of these people have like rubbed out their old videos, but during the last market, as the FOMC starts raising rates, Okay, right here. The party's over once they start doing this. They're playing teams against retail. Once they start raising rates in November, that is it. Meanwhile, you can turn on social media and see these self-proclaimed gurus who aren't able to actually produce leading swing trades like we can on this channel. And part of it is you gotta, one day you gotta eat a slice of humble pie. So this is my GameStop add-on trade. I was in on GameStop. This is, of course, 10 days before it rocketed to the upside. I was in Roaring Kitty's VIP, and he actually taught me all about this bond market stuff and how it affects stocks. Of course, it was later when I got into crypto that I realized it's Satoshi's secret and that he wove the halving cycle in with this global liquidity, which actually affects stocks the exact same. Looking at GameStop. It peaked at the exact same time Bitcoin did. So that add-ons from like right here and then January 28th, 2021. That's exactly when the party got started. And it's all from these bonds. So one of the biggest mistakes that you will hear people saying, and they're going to do it again, is they're going to be like, oh, look at these discounts. That's something that's completely insane. They think that this is like discounts and that everything's going to start rocketing to the upside, or worse, they sell too early, which a lot of people do. But once you have an understanding of what's going on here and then you actually do the accounting for it. What do you mean by do the accounting? Well, we've been pulling out in VIP the paperwork on when these bond auctions and transactions are going down. We were able to time this peak on August 26th, this one, and then this was a long-lasting one, utilizing this bond information. So it's a rabbit hole that goes pretty deep inside of our macroeconomic trends, and we're always linking this stuff to the trades. That's why we have these macroeconomic posts, because we got to link stuff into it. Yeah, so we got these bond sales, like we'll just bring out one right here. Yeah. So these bond auctions, right? You can actually trace the dollar amount, and then notice these. The 2 years, the 5 years, August 27th, August 28th, and August 26th. So we had pulled this out maybe a week in advance. And of course, that's right here. So these guys have their checkbooks out. Everything's going on. They just bought a bunch of bonds, diverting liquidity away from risk on. They do it again here. So we're coming up with multiple new ideas. And obviously, AI is helping me. It's not like I think of this stuff on my own. AI is a massive helper, and this is why the 24-point checklist system is going to get you started on getting yourself to the next level. We can sit around and study crypto for hours and not be able to correlate it directly to trading. Like this young guy who swapped for Solana. Let's take a look into that. I would say that that's a trade that you would want to do the exact opposite of. You would want to sell your Solana into Kaspa, even right now at 15 cents. Solana's not going to cut the mustard. What we're looking at here is USDT. And of course, Kaspa, this is part of the secret sauce. This is tying everything together. The quantitative easing, the marathon digital mining, why they're only doing 1%. Meanwhile, BlackRock, Jane Street, and all these big dogs are involved with Kaspa. We can see the marathon picture here. We can see stable coins here. We can even see a VC. Whoever did this, they're on the right track. We're the market makers. Right now, everybody's trying to put pressure on us to buy more Caspa by withdrawing from the exchanges simultaneously with quantitative easing. Good timing. Every single time they own a stable coin, half of their bag. Every time they own a crypto, an altcoin, half their bag's in stable coin, because they're the ones that put up the liquidity. MEXC itself is not owning Kaspa. Jane Street, State Street, these guys put the liquidity up. MEXC deals the business to them. So these guys own enormous bags of this. Tether. What is it all on? Ethereum mainly, which we know we're sitting at a boardroom right now. These guys, they're looking over their paperwork.
Paperwork on those.
Ethereum's a bad business model. It costs more. It's not scalable. It's slow. During the bull market, Ethereum will get jammed up and have a load of problems. Tron, faster, cheaper solution. Not as technically advanced as Kaspa. The hypothesis is that these guys are going to want to hold a majority of their stable coins in Kaspa. And what the KII is doing right now with their gigawatt stablecoin, connecting it to carbon credits, is unlocking something that is known as a disruptive technology. And this is where you get your X factor on Kaspa. This is where you get your absolute rocketing moonshot. We all know BlackRock's been utilizing this whole climate change narrative to bully around other companies. And right now, it's very easy for all of these companies and countries to evade these climate scores. But once they implement blockchain technology with it, it's a done deal. The stablecoin on Kaspa, they're planning on linking this to carbon credits as making it carbon neutral and then later carbon negative. Therefore, you own a nuclear waste facility. Inside of your balance, you own a lot of stable coins and they happen to be gigawatt. Now your carbon credit score goes down because you have a negative carbon balance. It's going to be all intertwined. That's the game plan. So it's going to be massively disruptive and it's going to completely moonshot next level. The KII is one of the most underrated factors about Kaspa. They just came along out of nowhere and completely changed the face of the project. They're going to be huge. These guys run an entire stock market known as the European Energy Trading Federation or something like that. It's an entire new market that Paul Vincent invented. So it's absolutely huge. Exactly. And so Solana had its day in the sun. So we can go a bit deeper as we have, looking up some of our older videos when we were actually comparing Solana to Kaspa throughout the year. And at one point in time, here's what went down with Solana. They have two different smart contracts. They have native and they have a connection to the Ethereum virtual machine, which they just established 400 days ago before the moonshot. With all this added growth in Solana from their Ethereum virtual machine, it was a boom. It was going great, and there was a lot of daily volume, not stored volume, which we're looking at right now. These are like dusty coins sitting in some damp basement somewhere. They had more active activity with their stable coins. It was up to like, it was like leading. It was like 60 billion in daily volume, and it completely tanked because of the crashes. There's been too many issues. It's not scalable. And keep in mind, we're not even in the bull run yet, and we haven't even taken this to the speed of business. That's cryptocurrency's biggest problem. It's cool for a bunch of us, like a niche of people to trade, but when you take it out into the real world, it doesn't work. It would be completely wrecked instantly.
Wrecked, son!
This happens with Bitcoin a lot. The network gets jammed up. It has issues. Kaspa, the technology, is next level. Next level. So it is what is designed and built to get taken to the speed of business. For everybody who's over 40 years old, we remember the age of computing when the Pentium chip came out. Computers used to take 20 minutes. If we were going to type up a letter and then print it out, spell check it, it would be like an hour. It'd be faster to write it by hand. It wasn't the speed of business. It was a novelty act. The majority of crypto right now is novelty. Kaspa's taking it to the speed of business. And it's going to just go completely to the upside. Now, there's a lot of factors incorporated, not just on chain. Obviously, the KII, gigawatt, smart contracts, and they've got the smart contracts on the table right now. For everybody who's a Caspa OG, we all remember, well, the community, we all voted, and we said it was going to be native smart contracts first, right? Native smart contracts first, and then we'll do Ethereum virtual machine. Completely 180 that. The KII stepped up and they said, we're going to go ahead and do smart contracts on the Ethereum virtual machine right now. They have 2 teams as we're talking with proposals on the table to get this done. So as the 10 BPS comes around, oh yeah, I forgot to tie this all together. As the 10 BPS comes around, guess what? The Fed will stop quantitative tightening.
Exciting now.
They are timing this. The teams are not foolish. This will be the end of the rate cut cycle. They'll stop the quantitative tightening, potentially beginning to start quantitative easing, which is bullish. Now giving the investment bankers, we watched a clip of myself playing poker on ESPN earlier. We're at a poker table right now. This is a zero-sum game. All the money that we win, it's because somebody else lost. And we've already identified one losing strategy right here. This guy was buying Caspa all the way up, and then he just harvested some losses. Somebody's got to lose in order to win. The players at this table, retail, the whales, the miners, the VCs, the market makers. Right now, the retail is trying to put pressure on the market makers, right? With the whole withdraw your Caspa, and the central banks. And here's the thing, the central banks and the VCs, they're playing teams. They are playing teams against us. That's what quantitative easing is all about. So as the central banks are giving cash money to the VCs, they're going to load it into risk on assets, which is going to be monstrously bullish for Caspa. And this is all happening in Q1, directly parallel with crescendo and everything. Something that I really like about this is it has a connection with Coinbase. You want that. They actually have Binance too, just starting on the VCs. Right now, there's issues with projects that were, let's say there was no Coinbase here and it was just Binance. For whatever reason, because the SEC started to attack Binance right here, with added regulation, this is getting the VCs, as they're getting money from the central banks, and they're going to go run off every FOMC meeting and start buying their favorite project. They're not buying the ones that are associated with Binance for the most part. And you can see this in a lot of DeFi plays. A lot of projects almost identical to Moonwell have just not been doing good because too much Binance, not enough Coinbase. So this one has Coinbase. Binance is where it's getting maximum volume. We're seeing here from a technical analysis standpoint, and we'll keep zooming in here on more details. We're seeing what we just talked about and what's on the total 3 as well. Looking this from a charting aspect, and of course, we never want to do naked technical analysis. We'll back this up with fundamentals and connect it ultimately to quantitative easing, seeing where the money trail is following from. But this bullish case that we're going to make, we can see clearly with a cup and handle. So your average upside on a cup and handle is 300 to 500% on top of this. So that means that you're looking at $6 on this breakout, 6 to 10. And this is breaking out. I mean, one thing that we really like to trade inside of our group is, and me personally, the cup and handle pattern. We can see it also on the total 3. It's really on a lot of bullish projects right now. So I really like SUI right now. Kaspa doesn't really have any classical patterns as we speak. I would say that this is poised for more within the next 30 days upside versus Kaspa because of the strength of this pattern. Now, to connect it to the quantitative easing cycle, so right here, when everything was selling off on the total 3 chart on SUI, it's right here. The majority of altcoins match the total 3. All their downside is going right here. What the issue was is because of this FOMC data, they didn't even know that there was going to be a bull market. It could have just ended up being a blow off top, looking something like this. They could say, instead of having this nice distribution phase right here, right in between these 2 arrows, this is when the rates are really low. And this is very important for SUI because it's smart contracts, meaning it's altcoins, meaning they need time, they need injections of capital, and they need time for that entire space to grow and develop. To show you another example, let's take a look at AVAX, of what we're talking about with the growing and developing. So AVAX, here's that run up, right? You get the run up phase and then massive sell off. And right here is when they started building and developing. They started making the Trader Joe's, all the utility coins, and then supernova rocket to the upside. These are the distribution arrows that we were just looking at. So now that the FOMC has verified, we're going to give you one of these distribution markets. We're going to put those 2 green arrows on the chart. No matter what it is, this is going to be good for SUI because it's smart contracts. Smart contracts, normal crypto is just supposed to handle data, information, numbers, very surface level, mustardy type of things. Smart contracts is where you get into the more enriched computer programs, codes on chains, gaming, more interactive, making it much more approachable to the speed of business, getting it in people's hands. Now that the bull run's been established, yeah, this is a great way to get a diversified approach to people getting their hands on and actually using crypto in the market. So it's a good pick. And now, are you late? No. As zooming in on the total 3, and this is going to be a really important number just in general for altcoins. But once we get above, this previous high was like 780. Once we get above 800 billion, so we're going to do we'll probably do a high, what's known as a high handle, rounded bottom. So this will go up a bit higher. It's not going to just stop at 800 billion and then make a handle. It'll probably go up to here, pause, and then really rip. So as the total 3 is finding its peak here, yeah, SUI is going to beef up. So this is a good swing trade. I mean, this is a clear cup with a handle, and we just correlated everything there. Caspa versus it as holding positions into the bull run. Caspa's got that new crypto, so much to develop. It's innovative technology. It's disruptive technology. It's got the wow factor. It has the most moonshot capability. When you're going with SUI, it's like going versus DeFi or AI. This would be another great way to compare it. So you can go ahead and go with your Moonwell, or you can go with your DEAI, an artificial intelligence pick, very popular amongst Twitter. They're going to do a lot with agents. The AI narrative is new. It's up and coming. It's untested. It could go absolutely huge with the upside of ChatGPT and everything. It's kind of paving its own beaten path. Meanwhile, with DeFi, you know you're going to go upside as more correlated to the quantitative easing and how bullish the market is in general. You'll probably also have an easy time timing the top of SUI, which makes it a more manageable trade. So as a hodl, you're going for more X factor with Kaspa, more rocket ship nosebleed gains. And remember, for the past 2 years, Kaspa has been the leading top 10 performer amongst cryptos. It's just constantly seeing the most gains. And right back here, before this downside with the Bank of Japan carry trade and then the KRC20 sell-off, if you held Kaspa, you were a genius because everything else was dumping. Kaspa wasn't affected by this fear because it's a stronger layer 1 narrative. So hopefully that gave you some insight into the two. Also, when Kaspa gets smart contracts, if you want to take more action, yeah, rock SUI until we get closer to the crescendo, because as they do the 10 BPS upgrade, as we can see off of this, Kaspa has this huge correlation to the bond market, to the quantitative easing market. You want to get exposure to this. Now, SUI is doing it in its own way, but Kaspa has that kind of more. And you'll be able to use on-chain data to time your Kaspa trade. When they open smart contracts, even on the Ethereum virtual machine, it's going to absolutely nosebleed. It's going to be one of those things where it's just like nonstop fun. Everyone's going to have the giggles. It's going to be stupid. Researching crypto can be like wandering in the woods without being able to see the sun or stars to navigate yourself. You can literally sit around and study for hours on end. And I know you guys are looking for leads inside of YouTube, social media. It's a great spot to see. Remember, we have the highest performing group, and one of our tools that helps us find these gems, getting in on Spectral down low, DEAI. These were all leading swing trades, like the best performing over 90 days, 30 days. These are verified 24-point gems. And we have inside the VIP group 7 of these reports already typed up. Videos explaining how to use this, and inside your printouts, if you're new to crypto and you haven't started a trading journal yet, you automatically get a trading journal, not just digitally, but you get printouts, including like that cup and handle statistics. These are studies that were carried out over years of specifically crypto to get their performance average on these different patterns. And we use them like example on this call out. Broadening wedge, right? We're looking at it in VIP here, get some downside. Now we realize, yo, this is a broadening wedge. This is about to break out, and this is a buy signal for us. And then it rockets to the upside. The broadening wedge does a 90% upside. So we've got patterns from charts you've been looking at and trading over the past 6 months to 18 months right here. If you buy a book, they're 4 years old. And then these reports to help you research. With the 24-point checklist, you also get 84 questions to cut, copy, paste, and ask AI. It's a great tool. And we utilized AI to figure out the KRC20 was going to be a short to the day, to the dollar, using the repeating trend line system, which is what Bitcoin just bounced off as well. And is testing, shot a wick above, that's a good sign, but we'll get there. We'll get there to the upside. Yes, it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people that, in my opinion, every single time you do a YouTube video as a creator, you have a responsibility to show your history of callouts over the past 90 days. And we've destroyed everybody. We have the top performing channel hands down. We're crushing the best meme coin picks that these guys came up with. Turbo, Hoppy. Our real project 24-point gems outperform them. And so this will really get you into tune with, more importantly, you don't need to understand all about crypto. You only need to know enough to trade it. You see what I'm saying? And so this list is what you should be studying, not what you're going to find on Google. It's the stuff like, what global focus does your project have? This kind of sounds like something that, oh, that might be a waste of time, Jesse. I'm not sure I need to study the global focus. Remember when the Bank of Japan carry trade went down? Because we study global focus, we knew this game is based in Japan. It's a good game. So we start planning to buy it here. 18 hours later, it crashes. We buy it. Keeps going down, then gets back up here. We're like, yo, add on to it. This is just the start. The add-on tripled up. If you got it from the bottom, it was like a 5x if you got the top, and we take profit here. This is a swing trade. So there's a lot of different elements that most people won't look at that we do, specifically with this poor guy swapping Caspa for Solana. What he's not doing is step 3, which is going inside the GitHub page and reading the code. You can usually find the GitHub either right on the website, and then what you do, and this is why you want to have artificial intelligence. Here it is. No, that's the Discord. Well, sometimes they'll link the GitHub just right down here. And what you do is you go there and it's written in code, because this is open source. Hackers from all over the world are like chipping in. You get your artificial intelligence out and you say, yo, look inside this GitHub page and tell me how many coders are working, how often they're working, what they're working on, how close is it to done, what do you think about the job they're doing, how bullish is that going to be, how does that affect so-and-so that's going on chain, and you start asking it questions, because AI knows what you do not as a real estate agent. It knows all about code, and this will get you where you need to be to understand it. You don't have to be a super nerd to be a good crypto trader. You just have to know enough to trade. And that's what we focus on inside the group. And the most important stuff isn't even on chain. That's the weird part. The most important stuff is really the FOMC data. In such a chaotic world, crypto is striving for structure. That and our technical analysis is pretty awesome. This repeating trendline system is amazing. These trend lines just constantly repeat, and this is on every crypto. From Kaspa to we have like the most amazing Tau charts. And once you have this insight, it allows for much more accurate trading. Let's zoom in on the Kaspa retreating trend line. So knowing about that, that's how we were able to time the exact point when Kaspa would reverse and short it. And also 50 days in advance, we predicted that the bottom would be right about when it was, at just about the exact price that it was. Now, because of the success of KRC20, those meme coin teams sold a little bit extra Kaspa and it went lower down to the gamma squeeze level. But I mean, we got it pretty close to spot on, and that's all technical analysis. So what just happened was, okay, what just happened was we finally surpassed that resistance level, the gravitational field, and we went right up to the next Fibonacci angle, found resistance, and now we're finding support. So our momentum indicators are going to take a pause, and we have videos on how to do that. And as they take a pause, they still have plenty of fuel in the tank for this breakout to continue. It's going to mirror this one, creating a bull flag. So we might just be having a stall right now and take another leg up to the red zone. We might start to flag out and then pop up, but more upside is on the table, hands down, for Kaspa. And if anybody is looking for last minute opportunities to buy more, this is support. So if you get the opportunity to get as close to this as possible, take it. Because this was prior resistance and it's now flipped to support. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that inside VIP group. Let's take a look at some of the 24-point gems and see how Spectral and DEAI are doing right now while we're here. So with Spectral, using the repeating trendline system again, we got this line, which is constantly repeating itself. We can see it in purple right there. This golden pocket set up a resistance becoming support. And what we're seeing right now is this prior top at this exact angle is now flipping over and acting as resistance. So we're taking a momentary pause here. As soon as we cross into this gray zone, re-entering back up to 12.25, 1250, the next leg up is going to put us right at the previous all-time high, which will be the top of the gray, bottom of the blue zone. Also another psychological level where we'll probably have a full cup, then a handle, and then a breakout. This will fully mature over the rate cut cycle and then have a nice kickoff before the bull run even gets going. DEAI, another rounded bottom. We're seeing these everywhere. There's not a lot on the technicals with DEAI. A lot of the volume is being traded on both of those projects on DEXs right now, which is how early they are. Everybody in the United States is buying Spectral on Uniswap, even though it's not, wow, it's actually not that much volume. There's more on Aerodrome. Interesting. Which is one of the narratives for Spectral, is it connects to the DeFi well. But look at that volume. Very strong volume. Great project. And we've got full 24-point reports on both of those. That's the question of the day, right? Does DEAI have more upside than Spectral? Because the two are really competitors. And they both have completely separate narratives as well. One of them is very strongly based inside the United States. The other one is specifically targeting third world countries that don't have the opportunity to work in coding, to work on computers, and then giving them assets. And that's DEAI. So it's a very interesting head-to-head. When they were both at the same market cap, it was hands down Spectral. I think that Spectral does have the better opportunity to do an absolute moonshot. Because it's lined up for a Coinbase listing, in my opinion. As we know, Polychain Capital, they're like a Coinbase off the books. And you got your Aerodrome. So when you read the roadmap for Spectral, right now it's like very much under the radar intentionally. Because right now these Silicon Valley coding companies are just loading the bag with it. Because of the election results, this drastically affected Spectral in a bullish nature. Trump is huge on AI and was signing a lot of executive orders that ensure America is going to be the leading artificial intelligence company. And this is the key why my two side bags, I also have some Moonwell, but not anything in size compared to my Spectral and DEAI. Those are my big side bags. The reason why I went with that, there's multiple faucets. One, look at the stock market. Every single stock that's been leading, pulling the weight of everything, they're all hooked up to AI. NVIDIA, Google, Microsoft, Tesla. They all buy those A100 GPUs. AI is the thing that they do. So we're inside of $1 million condo, high rise, on the 40th story of Las Vegas Boulevard right now. Inside here, there's a community of extremely wealthy people. I get to talk with guys who go to the World Economic Forum that speak on financial television. They're on CNBC talking about the bonds, talking about stocks and crypto. And so obviously we hang out. We're like buddies, right? In the building. We go to the same gym. We hang out at the same coffee lounge downstairs. Oh, yeah. These guys were telling me about a GameFi pick that I already wrote a 24-point report on. This is getting listed this week. So if you guys aren't in the VIP yet, just like a UFC fighter or a coach, you get a coach, they look at the way you're punching. Sometimes it's just a slight change, something that you're overlooking. Having multiple eyes on never hurts anybody for $47. It's a huge value. With the 7 reports that we have, each one's like 8 or 9 pages. We got 7 of them. 4 of them are in artificial intelligence. One of them is this GameFi gem that's about to get listed. It's going to be huge. So while talking with these guys, and this was like 6 months ago, They were telling me artificial intelligence is where it's at. Companies and countries alike are throwing cash hand over
Let me
fist
see the paperwork on those.
right into artificial intelligence with no avail. Like, because they know once they create sentient AI,
My CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer.
it's game over. Once they have this AI that's so smart, notice how we've been hinting throughout this episode, we've been using AI to beat the market, to figure out that KRC20 was a short, not a long. That was very easy because the Caspa meme coin teams are going to sell. They're not investors. Once they have this really powerful AI, they can take over the world. They can do anything they want. So everyone's trying to get it. Therefore, it's an extremely bullish narrative. For not just your regular crypto gains, for those moonshot, like, dude, did you see how high that one went? That's where I go. That's my investment style. Comb through everything in extreme detail and then just go for the absolute supersonic plays, which are spectral DEAI. Now, to get some security, also DeFi, Moonwell, and GameFi. If you can get a project like this game that's coming up, it's a gem. Are you kidding me? You guys are making so much cash. It's ridiculous. I remember back here, some guy was like, oh yeah, I got 2 sharks of Kaspa. Right? He's like, I got 2 sharks worth of Kaspa that he bought at like 5 cents. And he's like, where should we go on this rate cut? And I'm like, dude, let's get Moonwell. So he scoops up Moonwell at 30 cents. Loads the bag using that whole stochastic thing we were talking about earlier, the stochastic pullback timing, gets it on the dip right here, 29 cents, 30 cents, packs his bag. He got 50,000 bucks worth. It's like, wow. But no, it's a pleasure. It's super fun to be able to share. I've been at this game for a long time. This is a GameStop add-on before the GameStop spike. So it takes a long time to get through this. And if I'm able to save anybody the hardships of learning this, it's good. This is like a warp zone of studying. It's a good study group. For sure. Yeah, speaking of the Caspa pump, so looking at the statistics directly, we'll be able to find out when it's going to go. So the 15 already went half hours there. Where's the 1 hour? So the 1 hour is still coming down. This is right around where we're finding here. So once these stochastics take a pause, start to check down, and then they turn around and break back to the upside, that's when we'll get our next move. I think, well, hard to say. It was pretty evident, though, based on the fuel tank. This is extreme anomaly, showing so much momentum to the upside. And this was already on the chart back here at 8 in the morning yesterday when we were making thumbnails. Caspa was just at 12 cents. It had just crossed back into the power law y-axis right around here, and this was already up there. Since yesterday, on the 1 day, it wasn't really here, but now the 1 day has this huge momentum spike, bigger than all of these, which is very important. The larger this gets, the better. There's a lot of strength still in reserve on this Caspa breakout. It's just taking a pause right now. This is not the end of the road. We're going to keep getting upside. What looks like the most logical path here is oftentimes we'll get resistance either in at the red zone, either the bottom or the top. We can see this throughout past Fibonacci projections, right? Lining this one up approximately. Of course, it's slightly off, but we can see on this model, more importantly and more visually clear back here on the original x-axis downtrend, if we put a Fibonacci pitch right on this, place it here. Okay. Now we're talking turkey. So looking at this, you can see that original x-axis repeating downtrend, and this is the repeating trend line system. When you combine this with classical patterns, boom, your insight into charting just goes to the next level. Look at all the contact points we get, the golden pocket, super contact in there on the highs and the lows. Every different level, we're getting contact. We break out into the gray zone, pull back, blue zone, massive resistance, pull back, red zone, breaks out, comes back, bounces off the top. Now, here's an x-axis downtrend, and it's in between the red and the purple zone. And as we plot out these different ones, we're frequently finding resistance there. Thus, as this breakout continues, we start to find 19 cents, right around the 20-cent range in between the red and the blue zone on the next level up. That's also an additional psychological level. The 20-cent range was also helping this y-axis resistance before. So this time when we reapproach 20 cents, Caspa is going to be able to jump right over it because it's no longer held by its y-axis support. Flips to resistance. Too much on this chart. Let's take these down. The original y-axis here on this first breakout, we clone this. You can watch the old videos from way back in the day, and we're looking for the candle to start finding support here. It starts catching on here, and now we know it's good to go. Plus the FOMC information. We load the bag 2 cents and under. When you take a Fibonacci pitch, place it on this, lining up for maximum contact points, and this is exactly how we have it set up in our old videos from 400 days ago. Top of the gray zone here, bottom of the gray zone here, all this golden pocket contact, it all lines up perfectly. What ends up happening? The exact setup that we had from back here in the summer turns into resistance, flipping this repeating trend line from resistance into support. So when Caspa gets back up to 20 cents, it's going to have a much easier time breaking the 20-cent mark because it's not going to have that additional y-axis repeating resistance. And you can see this all over multiple charts. Tau, we just had an epic read on Tau. This actually is way more clear on 45 minutes. So we posted this inside VIP right here on the 19th. Comes down, bounces off the golden pocket, finds resistance here, bouncing off the gray. When you zoom out, it's the exact same trend line repeating the x-axis resistance. There's already splinter cell groups going around teaching this. Repeating trend line stuff. It's awesome way to chart. And we combined it all with classical patterns. Like the symmetrical triangle is the most common on pattern. That's the x-axis and the y meeting over and over again. Gives an additional level of insight into it. Yeah, Solana is completely ridiculous. I absolutely agree with that, Trish. It's what it is completely, and why it's almost bizarre that that poor young man swapped his Caspa into Solana is because It's literally set up to take over Solana's traffic. It's also getting set up to take over XRP. What's XRP's big deal? They're ISO 220 compliant. Which means that they're regulated to go from bank to bank transfers. That's XRP's meal ticket. That's why they did so well and why they're so stagnant right now. That was the big deal. Kaspa's already applied for that, or they're verified. I don't know exactly which one, but they're basically already good to go, ready to take out XRP as we speak. And they're going to destroy Solana because they're both written on Rust. So all of these developers are just going to come right over, cut, copy, paste, and just put all the projects they've already got built on Solana. It's just going to be cut, copy, pasted, and put on Rust, rebranded. You see what's going on? Yeah, it's going to be great. So super fun stuff coming. And that poor kid did the exact opposite of what I believe that you should do and what a lot of this data that we're pulling up is. But, I mean, hey, that's how it is. So super awesome. We're back on top as a community. Everything's looking good. And this breakout is just taking a breath of fresh air. There'll be continued upside. We'll have more posts for VIP members going over this 24-point checklist gem. It's a new listing, never seen a day on exchanges, and it's about to drop. And it will be the leading GameFi narrative this bull market, even taking out Heroes of Mavia. So we got to get ready for that taking place soon. And we'll also get up to speed on some of our other plays, what's going on, etc. Thanks for checking out this video, guys. We'll catch you. And we will catch you on the next one.